Is your debt causing you sleepless nights? Knock your debt out with Debt KO. And your debt won't be the only thing keeping you up at night. Debt KO, free impartial advice on all your debt.
Razabani for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. With me, I've got MTK's very own, the historian, the knowledge. I'm running out of titles. My man, Spencer Fearon. Spence, how are we doing?
I'm really good. And you know the rules, even better for seeing you, my friend, just speaking to you, brother.
How's the family? How are the children, first of all, before I start?
Everything's good. Everything's blessed. So I'm grateful, man.
I can see you sipping on your water there. Spence, a lot going on in boxing at the moment. I haven't touched base with you since last weekend's clash in America. We saw Kell Brook take on arguably one of the best fighters on the planet in Terence Crawford. Is that what you expected to see as the end result so quickly?
Yes and no. But I mean, I didn't think that Terence Crawford could do it that early. I thought the fight was going to go long. I thought from round 8, then I thought Kell Brook would be in trouble, especially for him getting down to 147, something that he hasn't done in his last 3 fights. So, you know, I thought maybe that would take its toll on him. But to see Kell Brook box the way that he did for the first 2 rounds, and you're watching it, you think, oh man, you know what I mean? Come on, Kell, right? But no way did I expect Terence Crawford to stop him in 4 rounds. And then it's time to, and I don't want no one to take away from the victory of what Terence Crawford did, because that was a very good Kell Brook in there. Dominic Ingle, we interviewed him last week, myself and Tunde Ajayi on The Fight Is Right, and he was saying like Kell doesn't go into fights thinking that he's going to lose. He doesn't take fights like that. But you know what they say? It's like if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And I think Kell Brook would have been so much better if he had Dominic Ingle in his corner. I think he would have performed better. I'm not saying that he would have won, but I'm saying I think he would perform better. And unfortunately, whoever has been advising Kell Brook, he's been wrongly advised. Because you got to think, his fight with Golovkin, and I thought he had a chance in that fight. Simply because I saw Golovkin versus Kasim Umar, and he didn't look good in that fight. And I think, you know what, maybe he ain't all that, because Kasim Umar used to be a junior middleweight. So maybe he's got a chance in there, but Kasim Umar is just a very, very tough man. But I know Kasim Umar didn't train for that fight. But by then he left Kazakhstan, he linked up with Abel Sanchez, he became a different fighter. You know what I mean? And we have to give Kell Brook credit for taking that fight. But when we look at it properly, he should never have been in the ring with Golovkin. Because let's be real, Golovkin effed up his career, mate. Then after that, and like, you know what? He didn't do him no favors fighting guys like Joe Jordan. No disrespect to Frankie Gavin, because he's my guy, I like him, right? But you just beat Sean Porter to the likes that nobody's ever beaten Sean Porter like how you got that win over Sean Porter. That brought you to the echelons of the 147 division, right? You know, Mayweather's playing around. He's like, Mayweather's you got the rest of the weight classes and boxing classes, then you got Mayweather's class. He's on another echelon, right? So he was regarded as the best welterweight in the world. At the time when we had an up-and-coming Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, he was up there with those guys, right? And people would talk about like in that, like he was above those guys. So he effed up his career. And that's real, because the Jojo Dan, Frankie Gavin, how is that preparation to say you want to be a top 10 guy? And I admit, yeah, you could have got stripped to your title if you didn't fight Jojo Dan because he was #1 contender. I get that piece, yeah? But Frankie Gavin, you didn't have to fight Frankie Gavin. What was that all about? So I'm just being real. So we have to just be real. And I didn't want it to be like, oh, well, Kell Brook kind of cashed out in taking this fight. But you know what? He kind of did, man. And it's sad. You know why? Because similarly to how Amir Khan was chasing a Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, and I think him doing that, there was loads of great fights left for Amir Khan. He did the exact same thing by not waiting for the Mayweathers or the Pacquiaos, but waiting for Amir Khan fight. I'm just telling you as it is. So it's going to be sad because we're going to be looking at that and saying, what is Kel done? No one's not interested in watching him at Amir Khan now. You know what I mean? Nobody. So where can Kel Brook go from here? Let's not me trying to demoralize Kel Brook because, you know what I mean? I have a personal relationship with him and his dad. But I'm just telling you as it is. You mash up your team, bro. And that's that. And you know what? Terence Crawford's bad. And on the rules, Terence Crawford's a real deal. No ifs or buts. Terence Crawford, for him to do that to Kel Brook, like that, Kel Brook started off so strong. And the craziest thing is this, like in fights, Kel Brook went into that ring, the bigger man, the physically bigger man. You could see, like, when he's trying jab for jab, you can see the body size. But what happens is the perpetrator often gets demoralized when somebody fine tweaks it up with skill. And we saw that demonstrated with what Terence Crawford did. Terence Crawford was actually emulating things that Kel Brook was doing to him. He started to stab Kel to the body with a jab. Do you know what I mean? And then when he switched it up, he said, well, we're at Southpaw now. We'll see what's going on. There's times where Kel Brook was trying to jab, and then Terence Crawford would throw 3-4s back at him. But it wasn't a confident 3-4. It was like, I'm not taking this from you. This is my house. That's how he handled it. And yeah, it was ploy. After props, Terence Crawford. I didn't think that he could. I knew he was going to win the fight. I didn't think that he could do that to Kel Brook, like in 4 rounds like that. You know what I mean? That's when you know he's serious. He surprised me how we dealt with Amir Khan. I'm going to be real. And he is potentially an all-time great. By the things that he does, I just hope that he stays on his game, stays focused, because there are some great fights out there for him, and he's a superb talent. And lastly, I would like to say this, and I'm keeping it 100. There's some disparity between him and Bob Arum right now and all the rest of it, right? And I would say to Terence Crawford to come to MTK Global and use their advisory system of the people that they got there. Not saying to sign up non-business makers, no, use their advisory system. Reason why? Because it's respected, they're growing, they're signing everybody. You know this is a fact. So I'm not even trying to boast, but use the advisory system of MTK Global, right? Because he ain't too happy right now.
Absolutely. You mentioned there, obviously, Bob's comments. So we're not sure what Crawford does, but I want to ask you something, Spence, because you know the 80s and the 70s and the 90s and the boxing quite well. Bob compares him to Sugar Ray Leonard and says he can compete with that level. Now, would you say that Crawford still needs some defining fights to put him on that pedestal, or is he on that pedestal already?
By the things that I've seen him do, I think he'll be able to mix with those guys, right? But it's amazing. Bob Arum promoted a young man for about 3-4 years in Floyd Mayweather, right? And he don't call his name in it. Why don't you call Floyd's name? Could Terence Crawford compete with Floyd Mayweather? That's the one you want to be saying. Right, we can talk about Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, all-time great, one of my favorite fighters. The Sugar Ray Leonard that fought Tommy Hearns was that September 1981, when they had their incredible barn-burning fight. Do I think Terence Crawford could compete with him? No, I don't think nobody could compete with that guy. That guy there. Do I think that Terence Crawford could mix with the Tommy Hearns of 1984, who knocked out Roberto Duran? No, I don't. I don't think he could compete with those guys. But you know what? I'm going to have sentimental kind of things out of my childhood, and you've seen these kind of things. So there could be some young kids watching Terence Crawford right now, and there could be the little junior knowledges, and they're going to have that in 20 years. They're going to say to an old person like me, shut your mouth. So, but what I am seeing with him, he's very, very good. And that's the truth. But unfortunately, Sugar Ray Leonard had dance partners, my friend, right? Sugar Leonard, November 1979, Sugar Leonard had Wilfred Benitez, who was nicknamed the Raider, who was the youngest ever world champion, beat Cervantes when he was 17 years old. That's crazy, right? 17. He had dance partners. He had dance partners in his first fight in Montreal in 1980 with Roberto Duran, who at the time was seen as the greatest fighter of all time. At the time, the arguments, they say, well, Sugar Ray Robinson, but they leave him out the equation. Roberto Duran was seen as the greatest fighter of all time, and at that time, he was definitely the best pound-for-pound fighter. So he had dance partners. He had dance partners. He had dance partners. Even in that, we got to think, prior to him winning the world title, Sugar Ray Leonard winning the world title, Sugar Ray Leonard fights a guy called Andy Hawk, like 2 months prior to him challenging for a world title. Andy Hawk was a bad man, and Ray Leonard clapped him out in 1 round and just bludgeoned him with punches, hurt him and finished him. And Andy the Hawk Price was famously, he was managed by Marvin Gaye, but that's another story. And I don't want to bore people. Oh, he's going off on this tangent on history again. That's right. That's why, because I'm the knowledge. But that era of those guys had dance partners. They had each other to gel for. And it wasn't a case of promotions or promoters. Because remember, Bob Arum was the guy that bust Muhammad Ali, you know. He was Muhammad Ali's promoter, right? Top Rank was formed by guys who were in the Nation of Islam. No, people don't talk about this. Guys who were in the Nation of Islam and Bob Arum. So you had Islamic guys and a Jewish guy working together in tangent. That is the beauty of boxing, right? Because the only color that matters is the green. So when we look at that, if you have a dance partner, then you're going to excel. A lot of these guys, they don't have dance partners. Bob Arum and Don King worked in tangent because Don King at that time had Roberto Duran, and Bob Arum was working with Sugar Ray Leonard, but they still managed to merge the fight for Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran. I think at that time there, Sugar Ray Leonard made $9 million for that fight. But that was 1980. Ridiculous, right? Right, ridiculous. So it can happen if they want it to happen. So Errol Spence, you're going to need a dance partner, and a real dance partner, because you can't be out there right now, Errol Spence, who I rate. You need that dance partner. Terence Crawford's that dance partner.
Another pound-for-pound fighter, someone who doesn't shy away from fighting the big fight, someone who doesn't shy away from leaving his promoter and television networks in Canelo Alvarez. We know he's been in there with the great fighters of today. He doesn't shy away. He's now going to 168 to challenge Callum Smith. I just want to talk about Callum's chances here against Canelo at this particular weight. We've seen Canelo at 175 against Kovalev. He wasn't doing too great in that fight until he landed that KO punch a bit later in the night. And we know Kovalev slows down towards the back end of the fights. How does Callum fare up against Canelo at 168?
How did you fare up? Number one is this, right? I've been doing my research. I think never in history has a fighter beaten 2 brothers and alleviated them and relieved them, of their world titles. It's never happened before. I don't believe so. I've done my check. I've done my research. At first, I got in my memory banks. Is it? And I was like, no, right? But what I can say is this: Joe Gallagher's been in there with Canelo, right? And first, it was talk about, is it going to be Caleb Plant for his IBF title, right? That was a talk on the PBC. So he thought, okay, Al Heyman's got in there. And I think that it's very difficult to fight Canelo, right? Because there's no style that Canelo hasn't seen. None. And the thing is that he knows how to use patience to his advantage. It's like in the Kovalev fight, we said, well, he wasn't looking too good. It's like he knew, no, I'm going to clap you soon. He did it in the Amir Khan fight. Amir Khan was winning that fight. Amir Khan was outboxing Canelo. right? But it's more to the fact that Canelo saying, don't worry, I'm just going to try. He set you up with shots. He'll go down to the body, come up to the top of the head. But what I am saying is this. If Callum can keep it long, and I'm a big fan of Callum, and like my son Amari is his biggest fan because like we spent time together for New Year's in Dubai. His family, my family, and the rest of the Smiths, right? And my son is his biggest fan. And I mean biggest fan. And if he can keep it long and if he can keep it precise and pop that jab, you never know what can happen. But what I am saying is, when we're dealing with horrible body punches, sickening body punches, Canelo's one of them, right? And what Canelo's really good at is reading fights, engaging fights, and looking at your mistakes. So if you make a mistake, then you're going to get knocked out. But what I am saying is that Joe Gallagher, he gets a lot of stick, right? But I like Joe. I like Joe because he gets more abuse online than me. So he's my alleviant of abuse. And I'm saying that, seriously, like, go interview Joe Gallagher next, right? So all the IFL haters can jump on him and start slagging him off, right? So Joe reads games. He puts down game plans. Like, I mean, me and Joe speak regular about boxing. We speak for hours. You know what I mean? And I would say, like, if he can devise a game plan, because Beefy, Liam Smith put in a gallant performance against Canelo. He never mugged himself off. So I think if they can stick to a 4-punch combination and move off, they've got a great chance. But the unfortunate thing is, if we look at with Canelo, with movers and southpaws, but if you've got to be a southpaw mover, they give him trouble. Austin Trout gave him trouble. Islande Lara gave him trouble. I thought Lara actually could have got that decision, right? But because he balls forward in that, and because he's a superstar, we've seen that. When you're a superstar, the eyes watch you. But if they can keep it long, I'm really wishing that he puts in a good performance. I really want him to win. You know what I mean? But can I see him winning? It's boxing, anything can happen. I'm not going to speak anything ill of Callum because I know all the Smith brothers. I know their old man is their dad's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to him. So I'm just willing him to win. I'm just wanting him to win, bro. They are such a nice family.
Deontay Wilder did another interview yesterday, I believe. Strange, actually, because he was calling out Dylan Whyte, and I've never heard.
That Custer? Was that one with Custer?
That's
that
right.
one?
Yeah.
Okay. That was a very good podcast, man.
Yeah, well, no, it was brilliant interview. We've seen Dylan Whyte call out Deontay Wilder for a long time. Wilder has always said, "Get in the queue. Your time will, one day it might happen. It may not happen." But Deontay Wilder actually put him in his list of fighters that he potentially said could be next himself. He said he put.
Tell Deontay Wilder it's 1,222 days late for you to put Dylan Whyte in your wish list. Dylan's concentrating on what he's concentrating on right now, and that was a projected fight with Povetkin. If it comes off, if it doesn't come off, then hey, who knows, yeah? But there's no need for Dylan Whyte to say you're gonna fight Deontay Wilder because you're calling me out now. Like, all the time I was calling you my name, anything you have to say was derogatory. I don't need you. He doesn't need you. He don't. And this is the difference, is this. Dylan Whyte lost his fight, made no excuses, right? We look through history of upsets in the heavyweight division, right? Major upset, historical upset, like when Joe Louis lost to Max Smelling, right? Was a massive thing. I'll give you some little education now. You young kids who are here trying to think, like, right, I don't need a computer with BoxRec around for me to read these stuff because it's all up here, right? Let me tell you a story, son. Let me tell you a story. Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, right, who came out of Michigan, was an incredible fighter, right? He was a man that could box, and as Henry Cooper sat down and told me when I was a little kid, he had like this little chopping 6-inch punch that he could knock you out with, right? And Joe Louis was knocking out everybody. And then, as he's going through the ranks, they got Joe Louis, they put him in with former heavyweight champion of the world, Max Schmeling, who was a German, right? But fair play to Max Schmeling, because he was not under any of the ideology of Hitler. He actually fought with the Star of David on his shorts in commemoration of his manager, who was Jewish, right? And you got to remember, at this time here, Nazi Germany was on the rise, but America had nothing to do with the war then, right? So June, I think it's June 18th or 19th, right? Memory doesn't serve me too well, but I know it was of 1936 in Yankee Stadium. They fight each other, and Joe Louis was boxing pretty well, but Joe Louis made a mistake when he would throw a jab and he'd drop his hands down, leaving himself open for a right hand. And they fought really good, and it was actually the fight of the year by the Ring magazine. And in the 12th round, Max Schmeling throws the right hand, wobbles Joe Louis, then rushes in and knocks out the brown bomber Joe Louis. A lot of people thought that Joe Louis was just going to be a flash in the pan. But Joe Louis was managed by a man who was a big numbers man called John Roxburgh. Go Google this man. He was a great man. He was a black guy in America who used to numbers games like when you're playing lottery. So John Roxburgh and these guys, they had him under certain rules where, you know, if you knocked out an opponent, you couldn't celebrate over him, put your hands over him, blah, 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 all these kind of things. Couldn't do none of those kind of things. So anyway, he takes his loss. He makes no excuse whatsoever. He takes his loss, wipes his nose and says nothing. Joe Louis goes on. He goes on a year after, becomes world heavyweight champion by beating the Cinderella man, right? James Braddock. He beats James Braddock to become heavyweight champion of the world. He has 3 to 4 defenses, and after that time there, Joe Louis wants a rematch with the man that beat him in Max Schmeling. Now at this time now, right? The Second World War started. It's on, right? Joe Louis says, okay, cool. Let's go in there and let's go have this fight. I'll defend my title against you. And Joe Louis batters Schmeling in 1 round. He hit Schmeling so hard to the body, with a body shot. He's from the left up to the body that you hear him scream. At the time of him just being knocked out, Hitler in Nazi Germany cuts all radio footage of the fight because he didn't want to have this thing of the Aryan race being superior over every other race on the planet. And he cuts that broadcast so nobody could hear it. And Joe Louis knocks out Max Schmeling in 1 round. The moral of the story is this. When you lose, don't make no excuses, right? Take your L, and your L can stand for 2 things. Either it's a loss or it's learning. And from Joe Louis's loss, he learned. We can flip the page. When was it? April of 2001 in South Africa, Lennox Lewis gets knocked out by Hasim Rahman. Take your L as a man, no excuses, right? Lennox Lewis famously told us that I'm going to make Hasim Rahman be has-been Rahman when I finish with him. And then he gets a rematch November of that same year and sparks Hasim Rahman. Don't make no excuses. I don't want to hear no excuses from Deontay Wilder. Right your wrongs, and the way you can right your wrongs is in the ring. I don't want to hear this glove gate nonsense. I don't want to hear of your water being spiked. I don't want to hear that the costume was too heavy. I don't want to hear none of those things. Reason why? Because nobody really cares. And when you're complaining about one of these things that happened to you, you're actually making yourself look like an idiot. Because if it did happen to you, right, all of these things, then come with your proof. Because anyone can come up with allegations and accusations. But as long as you got proof and you can comprehend your proof to people to comprehend it, then we can say, okay, then I'll fight tooth and nail and hammer for you. If you thought you was cheating, and we know it is. But I know this. When your gloves are being checked, I've been there. I've been around world champions when they're just about to fight. I've been around guys from any form of level. You have inspectors inside the changing room. And then also you nominate a corner person from your camp to go and inspect when the gloves are being done. So you're trying to say the Nevada Commission was involved in this as well? And Jay Diaz, who's your trainer, he was there as well. Was he part of it? Come on, man. Stop this ludicrous nonsense, because it don't make you. And what I do think is this: if I was Deontay Wilder, I could punch like him, right? I'll be in the gym right now learning how to box a bit better. Because I know at the end of the day, I can box, and now I know that I've got Dynamite in his hands, I should be all right. So I don't want to hear none of the nonsense of anything that goes on there. And no, Dylan Whyte should not fight Deontay Wilder. Dylan Whyte to concentrate on Dylan Whyte right now, because Deontay Wilder hasn't got nothing to give him at all.
We know Tyson Fury was in a fight early December. It looks like that fight is now not going to happen. Frank Warren's come out and said we couldn't get the package, the finances together for Fury. Fury looks like he's going to be out next year now. And with Deontay Wilder now disputing this trilogy fight and saying it should happen, I have my rights. And an answer is expected in the next week or so, I believe. Eddie Hearn has come out and said it's potentially likely that if they do fight, then Joshua will fight Usyk. Does that mean the Fury and Joshua fight just carries on in the loom and may not happen next year?
No, I think that Fury and Joshua could happen potentially by November next year. That's what I believe. Because I think that Andy Joshua would beat Usyk, and I think Tyson Fury would beat Deontay Wilder in a rematch. So that's what I believe.
Do you see Pulev causing any issues to Joshua December 12th?
Yes, I do. Pulev can fight. I think Bob Arum was saying that Pulev's going to win that fight, right?
He says to knock him out.
He's hating, right? He's probably hating. Anthony Joshua will do all of them, because Anthony Joshua now is learning the fundamentals of boxing. Was that screamed for ages for Anthony Joshua to start learning and start being around some boxing people, and now big bad AJ is doing it, the man from Watford. Do you know what I mean? So I've got AJ beating Pulev, because Pulev is not a concussive puncher. He's a hurtful puncher, not a concussive puncher. He's got a good boxing brain as well. But I think the natural athleticism of Anthony Joshua, especially if he's eating that pounded yam and a goosey, you know what I mean, that fufu in the stew, then I've got Anthony Joshua beating Pulev about round 8.
Spencer, half an hour. We can carry on for a long time. I know Zoom's going to give
You've got to chop this up, man. You've got to chop this up.
I know Zoom's going to give me a notification that the time's running out, but always appreciate you jumping on. Looking good and sharp as always. And thank you for blessing us with some of that knowledge, some of that history. And hopefully people who are going to watch this can also appreciate the knowledge that you give us and education.
Well, thank you very much. And may I say lastly on this, Assalamu alaikum to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this, that we are taught that in Islam that we are the best of mankind. We can only be the best of mankind by being embracatory of everybody else and raising everybody else to the natural level and their spirit level. You know what I mean? The simple thing is this: Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. So we also got to go high. So peace, 2 fingers, I'm out. If you love boxing, then you should love me, because I love boxing. Peace, I'm out.
Spencer Fearon, IFL TV, thank you very much.
Is your debt causing you sleepless nights? Knock your debt out with Debt KO. And your debt won't be the only thing keeping you up at night. Debt KO, free, impartial advice on all your debt.